You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That viral quote from the World Economic Forum in 2016 wasn't meant as a plan, they claim. But right now in Britain, it's starting to feel less like a prediction and more like a warning. I've personally handled over 13,000 property deals worth more than £5 billion through my agency, British Home Sellers. And I can tell you, the reality goes far beyond a typical housing crunch. This isn't just about prices rising. It's a full-scale transfer of ownership. Ordinary buyers aren't simply being priced out. They're being systematically edged out while large corporations and wealthy investors snap up properties. In this video, we'll uncover who's buying homes in the UK, why the middle class is shrinking as corporate landlords expand, and what could happen to the housing market if this trend continues unchecked. Welcome to what I call the Great British Land Grab. Home ownership in the UK is slipping at an alarming rate. In the early 2000s, over 70% of people owned their own homes. Today, that figure is falling fast, while renting privately is exploding. More young adults are living with their parents than ever before. So who is buying the homes ordinary people can no longer afford? The answer: corporate landlords. For decades, property landlords were small-scale, just a flat here, a house there. That's changed completely. Companies like Granger now own over 11,000 homes, expanding day by day. Lloyds Bank aims to be the UK's largest landlord, targeting 50,000 homes by 2030. Private equity, pension funds, and overseas investors are acquiring entire blocks, not individual flats. Houses are no longer just a place to live. They are now treated as high-value financial assets. This shift is reshaping the housing market and squeezing out the middle class in ways we haven't seen in decades. To understand where this is heading, we only need to look across the Atlantic. After the 2008 financial crash in the United States, Wall Street firms swooped in and bought thousands of foreclosed homes. Today, in some American cities, 1 in 5 houses is owned by a corporate landlord. The results have been dramatic. Rents have risen by 30 to 40% in many areas. Tenants face hidden fees, and repairs are often delayed while profits flow to shareholders. That same model is now creeping into the UK. As more corporate investors dominate the housing market, ordinary people will have less and less control over the cost and availability of their own homes. What was once a place to build security and a family life is slowly turning into a financial product for global investors. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. It's happening right now. And the implications for middle-class families could be devastating if nothing changes. The story of ownership in Britain isn't new. Back in the 19th century, almost all land and housing was controlled by a tiny elite: aristocrats, the crown, and the church. Ordinary people simply rented. But the 20th century brought a dramatic change. The government built millions of homes, wages rose steadily, and home ownership skyrocketed from just 10% at the start of the century to over 70% by 2000. For a brief period, Britain was truly a nation of homeowners. Now, that progress is being reversed. Government construction has all but collapsed. The private sector dominates, and housing has become a financialized commodity once again. We are witnessing a shift toward a rentier economy, where wealth is extracted from ordinary citizens rather than built by them. And it's not just homes. Public assets, from NHS car parks to utilities, are being sold off, leaving everyday people paying more while private investors reap the profits. This trend isn't limited to housing. Everything that was once collectively owned is being privatized. And prices are rising because profit, not public service, is the goal. Take the example of Wetherspoon's pubs. Prices stay relatively low because they own most of their buildings. Now, compare that to Topshop's Arcadia Group. They sold off their property, paid themselves massive dividends, and when the business collapsed, thousands of employees lost jobs and pensions. Ownership versus renting makes all the difference. Right now, Britain is doing something similar on a massive scale, selling off homes, commercial spaces, and public assets to private investors. Middle-class families that once built security through property are now trapped in rent, fees, and debt. This isn't just a housing issue. It's a systemic shift, a transfer of ownership from ordinary citizens to corporations and wealthy investors, reshaping the very foundation of society. The consequences will be felt for generations. So who is buying up Britain? Pension funds, private equity firms, overseas investors, and massive corporate landlords are all acquiring properties, extracting value from basic human needs, shelter, utilities, and even parking spaces. What was once a system that allowed families to build security is now being turned into a machine for profit. The phrase, "you'll own nothing and you'll be happy," starts to make sense, but only for those at the top. Ordinary people end up paying more, while control over their own housing slips further away. This isn't a temporary glitch or a market hiccup. It's the new standard. If we think this is sustainable, we're mistaken. And if we ignore it, future generations could inherit a society where renting, debt, and fees are the only way of life. The real question is, will we act before it's too late, or watch as the middle class is slowly bought out of their own country? The reality is clear. This isn't just about house prices rising. It's about who owns the future of Britain. Homes, public spaces, utilities, and even services we once took for granted are being turned into financial assets for wealthy investors. The middle class is shrinking. Young people are being trapped in rent and debt, and ordinary citizens are losing control over their most basic needs. This isn't a temporary problem. It's a systemic shift. So, the famous WEF line, "you'll own nothing and you'll be happy," isn't about our happiness. It's about theirs. If this trend continues, Britain could become a nation where ownership is reserved for the few, and the rest are permanent renters, paying fees and watching profits flow elsewhere. Think this is sustainable? Leave a comment below. If it worries you, share this video with someone who still believes this is just about housing costs.